Star Wars Jedi Survivor left many fans disappointed because it's another full-price AAA game that released buggy and broken, but now we've got insight into some of the game's sales, and things are not looking good for Respawn because they failed to surpass the prequel's physical launch sales, while players are still reporting major performance issues. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So starting off with this Bounding into Comics article, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the second best-selling game of 2023 thus far, but falls behind Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in physical sales. What's more is players are still reporting major performance issues a week and a half after the latest patch was released. Now, this is a game that I live streamed at launch. I've played the full game on the channel, and I did enjoy it. I thought that it was a good experience, but unfortunately, it did have some major problems. I played it on the Xbox Series X because I heard that the PC was completely messed up, and I'm glad that I did, because even on console that it was reported it played better, I still had a lot of technical issues, lots of lag, lots of stuttering, and unfortunately that is just not acceptable, and companies, are getting lambasted by players over this. We have seen time and time again, AAA games have released and they have been broken and buggy. I've talked about Forspoken, Wild Hearts, I had to talk about The Last of Us Part 1 remake, we have Jedi Survivor. Unfortunately, this is something that players are getting used to and we shouldn't have to, but not only that, it was a good Star Wars experience, but it still didn't live up to the expectations I had after Jedi Fallen Order, because that game was so fantastic. Best piece of Star Wars content we have gotten out of Disney Star Wars, but things are not looking too positive for this title. While yes, it is the second best-selling game of 2023 thus far, there are a lot of games that I think are going to overtake it this year. We have Final Fantasy 16, we have Diablo 4, we have Zelda, which just launched and we don't have sales numbers up yet. I mean, it is very clearly going to get beaten by a handful of games. GamesIndustry.biz's Christopher Dring reported on the UK's boxed game sales for the week ending April 29th, with the latest Star Wars game being the bestseller. This saw it beating out Dead Island 2, FIFA 23, and the almost ever-present Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and even Hogwarts Legacy. Now, you have to keep in mind that the only game on this list that was newer was Dead Island 2, because it did release the week before, but it wasn't a massive release like Hogwarts Legacy was at launch. It says, though, he also reports that the game has managed to become the second best game launch of 2023, selling faster than Resident Evil 4 Remake, but trailing behind Hogwarts Legacy. Its opening week sales are nonetheless 35% lower than what Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order achieved in 2019. However, in terms of the last 30 years, it's also the 8th biggest launch for a boxed Star Wars game. Now, it is important to point out that, yes, the first game came out in 2019, and over the past few years, we have seen the continued push for digital products. So I do think that part of this problem is that people are just simply buying less physical product, and I do think that the 35% lower, at least half of that, is the fact that people are just purchasing digital. It's easier, it's convenient, but at the same time, I do also think that the quality of the game really turned people off. I do feel like leading up to release over, that last week before it, people did decide to, cancel pre-orders, cancel their copies, get refunds because of how broken and buggy we heard it was. And unfortunately, at launch, yes, it was very broken. It was a disappointing experience technically. We expect a hell of a lot better when we are buying $70 AAA titles. This game did look beautiful. It was very fun, but it did have a lot of issues, and Unfortunately for Respawn, this is just another failure. I do think that, they have a lot that they leave desired with players. I talk about Respawn quite a bit because I'm an Apex Legends player, and Respawn, of course, is the developer behind Apex Legends. They are constantly, fixing 5 things but breaking 10 others. And with this game, they have only put out, one big patch so far, and they did apologize for the state that the game launched in, but they knew that it was going to launch this way because they had delayed it by, I believe it was 6 weeks before launch. So they already knew that they were going to have to put a lot of time and work and effort into fixing this game. They should have delayed it farther. 6 weeks was clearly just not enough. And looking at the Metacritic score, I mean, you can see how furious people really are. This is the PC score. It's the lowest of them all. It's sitting at a 78 critic, but a 2.7 user score. And it is unfortunate that critics were pretty biased in their reviews. And lately, we've seen a lot of titles launch broken, like I mentioned, but critics refuse to put that in their review, and most of them just ignore it and say, oh, it'll be fixed later, even though I had a ton of technical problems. That is why people do not trust critics, and that is why I only really look at user scores, and the scores for this are just not good. 2.7 for that. Oh, a 5.8 for the PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series X was a 5.7, but the PC was the lowest out of all of them. And most of the problems people have here were, technical ones. A lot of people were pretty happy with the story itself and the combat, but it's just not acceptable. We need to take a stance. The gaming industry cannot keep taking our money and delivering unfinished products. This needs to stop. At the time of writing, this is not a product you purchase to enjoy. It's EA taking $70 from you to have you beta test their absolutely shameful excuse for a release. The game industry cannot keep getting away with this, and this community needs to remain vigilant in calling it out when it happens. That's what I do on the channel, even though I do play a lot of games at launch, so that maybe you guys can watch a playthrough and save your money like I'm doing with Tears of the Kingdom, and I did with Jedi Survivor, did with Dead Island 2, I do with most large games. There are a lot of people who are fed up with this. And going on over to Steam, while it was sitting at mostly negative and the overall reviews are sitting at mixed, there are over 22,000 and a lot of them are not happy. Have not been able to launch the game since EA's outage on May 4th. The fact that this is a single player game that needs an internet connection to begin with is idiotic. Jedi Survivor is an amazing game that takes everything from the first game did and does it even better. Worlds are far more expansive and have much more enemy variety. Character customization is much better in this game, not just for the cosmetics, but for the gameplay as well. But they still give it a not recommended and say, while the game itself is great, the technical issues are just so bad. At first, I thought I was getting all right performance, like around 40 plus frames at 1080, but it just got so much worse, going anywhere between 10 and 30 frames at 720p medium settings. Having a game drop to 10 frames is not acceptable. I love this game, but it has some serious issues. I just can't recommend it. EA developers are a menace to society. The game is still stuttering like no tomorrow. Don't buy it until it's actually a playable game. It is sad to see that this game is still broken weeks after launch because it was a decent Star Wars experience, but unfortunately for them, their sales were not looking solid. I do think that the physical sales did suffer because more people are buying more digital products these days, but I do genuinely think that part of it was the technical issues, that people canceled their pre-orders, refunded their purchases, and just decided not to play it until it's on sale, or at least until they fix it. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.